I'm Kristen Anderson. My pronouns are she, her. I am here in the Ashland Library. I'm the Bear Creek area manager, and this is our July Read This. If you've been in a library or near a library or followed library social media recently, you know it's summer. Summer is, in library land, a time to do what's called the summer reading program. This year, we are using wild as our theme, and so lots of wild stuff going on in the library. If you want to keep track of your reading, you can use our Beanstack app. Your kiddos can do it, or you can do it. It's always good for our young folks to have reading role models, to see that reading is a pleasure activity. So one thing, no matter what you're reading, if you're reading and you have kiddos, if you're reading in front of them, that is actually helping them. So we have incentive-based prizes both for adults and for kids. Adults can get a free book. I was overlooking at the shelf the other day. We have the new Craig Thompson memoir called Ginseng Roots. We've got James by Percival Everett. Like, there are lots of really current, amazing books that if you were to read 5 this summer, you could come in and pick up a free book. That's funded by, at least in Ashland, the Ashland Friends of the Library, and we're grateful to them for getting us those books. Kids need to read during the summer, and the reason they need, this is your little PSA, kids need to read during the summer, and kids need to read during the summer so that they don't experience what's called the summer reading slide. Summer reading slide is the phenomenon whereby kids go home at the end of the school year for their summer break and don't pick up a book the entire summer, and then return in the fall to school reading at a lower grade level than they left at the end of the summer. Some of that's a little bit inevitable, but if kids continue to read throughout the summer, we can avoid some of that summer slide, which really helps our teaching partners in education out. And so we like supporting reading behaviors for young children during the summer, and that's why summer reading is such a big deal for libraries. But what that means is we've got lots of stuff going on in the library during the summer, and if you haven't yet, pick up an event guide. I probably shouldn't hold it up because I'll just put it on the screen, but we've got our lovely event guide that has lots of the programs that are going on throughout the system this summer, not just in Ashland where I am, but in all 15 of our locations. And we've got tons of stuff going on all over the place. A lot of it has ties to the word wild. And when we talk about books and reading, on our catalog, we've got a tab called Wild About ... And what we did there was allowed staff who most of the time spends their time trying to figure out how to match the patron who's in front of them with what they want to read. And so sometimes, but not always, our individual passion areas can be brought into play. So with me, that might look like someone coming up and asking a question about something like, I don't know, Jane Austen fan fiction and like imagined sequels. And that would be easy for me to do. But being asked about, I don't know, thrillers that have male leads might be harder for me. So this gave staff the opportunity to create a list around their passion area. So what you're seeing is not just me, but all of our staff doing a deep dive into things that they care about or think are cool. So we've got like a mermaids list and a Taylor Swift list and a theater list and a parenting list and all sorts of different things that staff are individually think are really cool. And if you think those things are cool too, those might be great lists for you. The thing I wanted to talk about today though was 2 different lists that I put together that kind of go from light wild, I guess. I called it a little bit wild. So what this list is, and what we'll have it linked on our catalog, is simply recent books of any kind, fiction or nonfiction, that have wild in the title. So what those books are is like Wild Dark Shore, which is a cli-fi novel that's recent by Charlotte McConaughey that's set in off the coast of Australia and is about a seed bank, like where they're storing up seeds for a climate disaster, but the climate disaster is actually happening to the island. Or Wild Houses by Colin Barrett, which is small town Irish revenge literature. To nonfiction like Wild Edibles, a practical guide to foraging with easy identification of 60 edible plants and 67 recipes, because I know we've got a lot of folks who are into foraging in the area. Or you could go the classic route and think about Octavia Butler's Wild Seed for some classic sci-fi. Wildscape. Trilling chipmunks, beckoning blooms, salty butterflies, and other sensory wonders of nature is another example from this list. Wild Plant Culture, a guide to restoring edible and medicinal native plant communities is another one. If you're more into kind of the fantasy side of things, Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May is low fantasy. Or Gregory Maguire, who wrote Wicked, has a novel called A Wild Winter Swan that is a retelling of Hans Christian Andersen's Wild Swan story. So all sorts of different titles on this list. Oh, Wild and Distant Seas, which is a historical novel set on Nantucket that's actually a Moby Dick prequel. You can read about wildflowers or fermentation, or Wild Things Are Happening. The Art of Murray Sendak is another one. As many of us love a little bit of Murray Sendak in our lives. Or taking it a little bit farther, The Wilds, a novel in 5 acts. That's a novel about Oscar Constance, his wife, and their 2 sons, and kind of his imprisonment for homosexuality. So all sorts of different books have a little bit wild in them. But moving from that to a concept that our marketing department came up with, which is feral summer. So now we're going full feral. This is a list that has more horror-themed titles on it, and some of them are, it kind of goes the range of humans behaving monstrously. For example, the new book by S.A. Cosby, King of Ashes, definitely humans, definitely not supernatural, definitely not horror. It's crime, but it is about humans who are behaving monstrously. Or this is horror, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim, which recently got, I believe it got the Stoker Award, which is the big genre award for, wait, no, not Stoker. Yeah, Stoker. Stoker is the big horror award. And that one is about cannibalism and other things. But it's a really good horror novel. And it's about humans behaving monstrously. But then you get something like Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which is a book told from the monster's point of view, and this particular kind of monster, in order to breed, needs to build a nest in a person. But for that monster, that's kind of, it's a cozy horror, which doesn't sound as delightful as it is, but it's a really good book. And another example of cozy horror is Bless Your Heart by Lindy Ryan. This one is vampire-ish, but the vampires feel more outside, more monstrous than human. And there's lots of kind of southern small town banter going on in the background. When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy is kind of hard to explain, but also has monstrous humans in it. Or you can go full on animals in the horror without them being human at all and get Whale Fall by Daniel Kraus, which is horror about a person who's been swallowed by a whale and has a countdown to get out, because obviously there's not a lot of air in there. Also a lot of goo, but really good horror. Another example of horror that kind of puts nature at the center is Tilt by Emma Patty. That's a recent one. It's set in Portland, starts in the IKEA there, is about a Cascadia event. If you have anxiety about living in the Pacific Northwest and fear of earthquakes, that might not be the book for you. And then there's books like The House That Horror Built, which is a book about horror movies by Christina Henry, and there are monsters, like it's almost like a set in a film museum with artifacts from horror movies that come to life. Let's see, and then we could move into historical. And Karen Russell's new one, The Antidote, is a mix of these two, like humans behaving monstrously and monstrous humans, but it's witches that they're called memory witches, and they can take away memories, but it has some really deep ramifications for things when you think about American history and people's ability to like walk away from doing monstrous things. If you can just get rid of those memories, then you can forget that you did anything wrong. So it has that baked into it. So it's more of a literary, low fantasy-ish magic realism piece. Or if you want to get into historical, I've got Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill and The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. Both of them take liberally from kind of Victorian era horror, and kind of these are imagined sequels, sort of, although yeah, they're imagined sequels of those horror novels. So in Our Hideous Progeny, it's you've got mostly Frankenstein going on, but in The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, you've got Moreau and a few other things thrown in there for good measure, Jekyll and Hyde, and all those kind of classic horror monsters. But I hope that in all of that you found some wildness to pique your specific interest this summer. And when you're seeing this, there's still some time left in summer, so come in and visit your library and get a little wild yourself. Thanks. We'll see you next month.